Hey there and welcome back. This is section 2 and we're going to be cutting our subject out from the background. Now it's going to be a little bit trickier than our normal, like just going to totally cut our subject out because we're actually going to be combining two different subjects. So make sure to pay attention. We're going to be using the pen tool and really doing a great job cutting our subjects out, and then we're going to combine them back together again. If it goes too quickly, always remember that there's a little rewind button. You can go back and see sections over and over again. Enjoy this section. Hey there, and welcome to section 2. In this section, we're going to be cutting out our subject, and a little bit more complicated than normal. We're actually going to be doing this in two different parts because we're going to be combining two different subjects together to create one, which is really cool. If you guys ever need to do this, if you like the bottom half of one subject and the top half of another, you can combine them together in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to make this layer invisible. We're going to start off with the legs here because they're going to be a little bit easier. And this really depends on how good of a job you need to do cutting your subject out. Sometimes you're going to get away with just doing a very rough job and using like a brush tool or something like that. But in this case, we're going to be using the pen tool. So we've provided videos teaching the pen tool. So if you feel like you need to brush up, they're in this pro tutorial as well. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in, cutting out the bottom half of our subject first. So first thing I'm going to do, we're going to select our layer. This is the layer we're actually going to use. Now we're going to go over here to paths, and this is where we create our pen paths. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new path. We're going to double click here and we're going to call it legs. There we go. Now let's go ahead and zoom in here and now just get a good idea of what we're actually going to be cutting out. So I'm going to hit P for the pen tool. That brings up our pen tool. And then basically my job is to just make sure that I cut around and follow a pretty good line right around my subject. So I'm going to start with an area just right about here. It's in like a little bit of a crease, and that's usually a good place to start. I don't like starting in the middle of curves because it can interrupt a curve. So I'll usually start in an area like this. All right, now my job basically, I'm going to click on this point and I'm going to click now here, and we're going to drag out in this direction. And you're going to see that's going to make our pen path. There we go. So my job is to make sure that this line, this curve here, actually follows the line of the dress. Okay, now I'm going to be doing this mostly when I'm zoomed in. So I've got my left hand on my keyboard here, and my right hand I'm using a Wacom tablet to control my cursor, but you can use a mouse. So when you're zoomed in like this, if you hit spacebar, it's going to bring up the hand tool, and that's going to allow you to move around your image. Okay, so spacebar, I can just kind of navigate. I don't have to zoom in and out every time I do this. Okay, now let's go ahead and get into it. I'll just kind of call out the keys that I'm using as we're going along. So now I want to move this point here to dictate the next curve, which is going to look like that, right? So I'm going to hold Alt or Option, which is going to turn this into a like an upside down V, which is going to allow me to adjust just one side of the anchor point there. And then we're going to go ahead and click down here and drag that down there. So the end goal is, we start off here. We've got one curve that goes up and comes down, and then we're doing it again, up and coming down again. So it's gonna be a lot of that. Let's go ahead and hold Alt or Option again here. We're going to click and drag this up. There we go, and drag this right over here. Now this is totally going to depend on your own, version of perfection here. What I find is that when you're using the pen tool, because it is such a really great tool at making edges, you generally don't have to follow the actual edge of whatever your object is perfectly. You can get it close, and most of the time that's going to be just fine. If you do have to err on one side, like if you're going to err on if you're not going to get a perfect line, if you're going to choose between going outside and going inside of the object, I would always recommend slightly going inside of the object. That way, when you go ahead and cut out the object, it'll include more of the object and not the background, which is exactly what you want. Okay, so here I'm just clicking and dragging to kind of follow the curve of the dress here. If you make a mistake, just hit Control or Command Z. All right, there we go. Now this is obviously the feet are a little bit more important than the detail in the dress. So I do want to make sure that I get these, pretty good. But any selection that you make in Photoshop, whether it's going to be the pen tool or a magic wand tool or using channels, whatever method you have, most likely it's not going to be perfect right off the bat. So we're going to be showing you guys in just a little bit, we're going to be showing you a really great way to go ahead and work on the edges of any selections that you make. I am having some trouble using the pen tool and talking. Any selection you make. Okay, we're going to show you how to adjust the edge of any selection you make. For instance, here we have a really nice glow around the foot, which is great. Now, if I were to make a selection right outside of this area, like right there, it would actually include some of the background as well as the glow. So I want to be sure that I have just the glow all the way to the edge of my selection. So we're going to show you a couple techniques for how to make sure that you get just the glow and just the foot all the way to the edge. All right, but for now we're just clicking and dragging. And the pen tool is, it's really not that difficult to use. It just takes a little bit of practice to kind of get the hang of it, but really all it is clicking and dragging. There we go. All right. Come on down. Okay. And this is, in case you're wondering, this is by far the most technical part of this tutorial and of this image as well, is cutting our subject out from the background. Pretty much everything else is going to be down to taste, and you're going to be able to put your own spin on it. But you do want to do your best to do a technically good job at cutting someone out, because you'll be able to tell if it's a really rushed job, especially when using the pen tool. You'll be able to look at the final image and be like, yeah, that's not exactly right there. Okay. Now some of this area we probably don't even need to cut out, like this dress over here, because we're not moving this part of the image. And there we go. And I don't need to get rid of that window that's behind her. So I'm probably using, using the pen tool even a little bit more than is probably needed, but just give you a good idea of how long this should maybe take, and what kind of effort you should go to cutting someone out. And this is, it's a great example to do for Levitation, but this is something that you can use on just about any photo where you need to cut someone out of the background. If you're photographing someone on a green screen or a white background and you want to put them on a different background, the pen tool is always going to be a really great tool for cutting someone out. All right, there we go. You can just kind of click a bunch of times there to get that fabric. All right. Oh, it does not go up like that. I make that mistake I was going to go up there and make that cut, but there's a little bit of fabric there. So if you make a mistake, just hit Control or Command Z. You can undo. No biggie. All right, let's go ahead and get the foot. And the foot is the most important part of this selection, because it's right in front of this beanbag, and I need to cut the beanbag out. All right. There we go. Okay. And you can see we're still using the same pen path that we started with. We're still on the legs path here. So this is one continuous path. So we'll have this path for the legs, for the bottom half of the subject, and then we'll have another path, a different path, for the top half. All right, let's hold Alt or Option there. Click on the bottom of that toe, spread it out, click and drag up that way. If you need to move any of these points after you make them, just hold the Control or the Command key, and that's going to allow you to move any of these points, because it happens all the time that you don't put it exactly where you want it the first time, right? So you'll need to move it after the fact. Thankfully, the pen tool allows you that much control, so you can move these points at any time. All right, and if you're going a little bit slower than I'm going in this video, don't be too hard on yourself. I've used the pen tool many times, and I would say like for the first, 3, 4, 5 months I was using the pen tool. It was a little bit tricky, I was like, I don't, it's not doing exactly what I want. I can't really figure out where it's gonna go next and things like that. So it does take a little while to kind of like get into the groove, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually, it's really, really helpful, and it can become like pretty intuitive as well. It's like riding a bike, really, At first it seems like impossible, the hardest thing in the world. Then after a while, it's like, oh yeah, you just get on it and you just do it. Well, it's not exactly like riding a bike, but you get the idea. Here we go. Let's bring that up. So we've done a pretty good job cutting the foot out, and let's go up here, and we're gonna cut the rest of the dress out too. There we go. Son, I want you to get on this bike. Go for it. It's just like using the pen tool in Photoshop. I'm probably going to be that dad. Now that I think about it. It's just like using the pen tool. It's okay. You can do this. I taught you how to use the pen tool when you were 4 years old. Oh man. My kids are going to really love Photoshop. Or hate it, one or the other, for sure. All right, now one of these areas, there we go. This area here is going to be like the between, one subject and the other. So I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out. So I'm just going to kind of do a rough job of this. I'm going to just kind of click and drag out here because I have no idea what this is going to wind up looking like. Especially at this stage of let's bring this up here. All right, there we go. It's not a big deal though, because I can always come back and refine this pen path later if I need to. And we're gonna be making a layer mask out of this pen path. Oh, to finish your path, by the way, just go to the very first point you started. You'll see a little 0 right next to your pen tool, and just click there. And then you can finish that path, and we have now one complete path. There we go. And if you need to go back and change it at any point in time, let's say we're not selected at our path, right? Just click here right on your path. You can see it's going to select it again. Then choose your pen tool, and then hold down the Control or the Command key, which is going to change to the little direct selection tool. Okay, it's going to give you an arrow, and then you can just click anywhere on your path. And I can click any of these points and move them at any time. You can even click here on a curve and move that if you need a curve. If you need to add a point, simply click anywhere on your line and it will add a point. See, I just added that point. I don't know if you can see that. I'll show you here because it's easier. So I can just click there. I got a little plus and click there. I've added a point now. And if I need to subtract a point away, just hover over an existing point and click, and it will subtract it right away. All right, there we go. So there's our pen path for our legs. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what that actually does. So we're going to go ahead and make this into a selection. I'm going to right click right over here. We're going to go down to make selection. So it's going to turn that path into a selection, and we're going to feather this by 1 pixel. That's just going to make sure you can see the edge isn't perfectly, especially like right here. You can see it's not like a perfectly in focus line, especially around our subject because she's moving a little bit, right? So we do want to feather that. It's going to make it look a lot more realistic. So let's hit OK. And there we have a selection around our subject now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our layers. We're going to make sure we're clicked on the layer where our subject is. Okay. And then we're going to click on our layer mask. There we go. So clicking on your layer mask is going to turn your selection into a layer mask. And there we have our subject is now completely cut out of her background. Well, the bottom half of her is. Anyway, we'll get the top half in just a little bit. But the bottom half is cut out. And if you wanted to, you can move her around now. And she's good to go. Everything looks really good. This area here on her foot is just a little bit darker. You can see this dark area here, right? That doesn't quite look natural. And the actual edge right here is just a little bit sharper than it should be. It actually needs to be a little bit blurred, okay? But we're gonna get to that in just a little bit. So for now, we are in a really good place because we've cut her out of background. And because we had this background here with no beanbag, that basically got rid of my beanbag. If you need to see what the image looked like before you applied your layer mask, just hold down Shift and click on your layer mask, and that's gonna put a big X through the layer mask, and that's gonna show you the before and the after there. Okay, so we can see what that looks like. Very nice. Okay, now there is one slight thing that I want to bring up. The light here in this corner did create a really nice light outline on the foot and things like that. And when I get rid of the light, that goes away too. But we're going to be warming this image up, and we're going to be adding some light rays and things like that. So this is actually going to wind up blending really nicely into our image. But for now, it looks just a little bit weird, but we will wind up taking care of that. Okay, that looks great. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing with this area of our subject as well. So we're going to click on this subject here because we're going to wind up moving her to the right a little bit. Let's lower our opacity because we want to see what we're doing. So we're going to wind up moving her to the right a little bit because I want this to actually be right over there. All right, because her body would not line up very well. All right. So let's just bring this back to full opacity. We'll make the layer underneath it invisible. And now we're going to cut out this part of her body, starting down here. Okay. So this is, it's a very, very important part of the tutorial, learning how to cut someone out of their background. It's probably the least entertaining part of the tutorial. So, you know, I'll do my best to just say silly things. By the way, this hair I'm not really that concerned about right now because I'm probably just going to use a brush tool on my layer mask to get things like hair. Straight edges like arms and legs and architecture and cars and things like that, these are really, really great subjects to use the pen tool because it creates really nice curved lines. Things like hair or like clouds or anything that has like rough or kind of undefined edges like that, not so great to use the pen tool. It's better to use other types of selection tools. So just a little something to keep in mind. It's definitely not necessary that you use the same selection tool to cut out an entire subject. I'll oftentimes use a few different selection tools, like we'll use the pen tool and, you know, maybe the brush tool and a couple others to cut out the same subject. So don't feel like you got to get everything perfect with just one tool. That's why they offer more than one tool, so you can use a variety. There we go. Now you're seeing a little bit of like this purplish fringe right around our subject's fingers. For those of you who enjoy technical terminology, that's actually called chromatic aberration. It happens due to diffraction in the lens, and you'll often see it, especially in lower quality lenses or at apertures that are, you know, more wide open. You'll see a little bit of a color fringe at the edge of objects, especially if they're right in front of a light source. Not a big deal, especially in front of a light like this, because it looks relatively natural and people are pretty used to seeing it. But when we move this hand, we're going to wind up moving this hand over to the right where it's not in front of a light source. This chromatic aberration and the white glow is going to look kind of out of place. So later in the tutorial, we're going to wind up getting rid of that. All right. Looks like my mother just sent me a text message. Thanks, Mom. Glad it was not too embarrassing. Remind me to turn off my text messages before creating tutorials. There we go. You guys got a little inside track into my own life. What goes on outside of teaching Photoshop? I don't have much of a life. I spend most of my time doing this, so there's not much to dig up, trust me. All right, let's go ahead and now I'm saying this and you guys are even more intrigued. You're like, oh, he wouldn't have said that if, you know, If he wasn't trying to hide something. No, to be honest, outside of Photoshop, I really enjoy, I cook a lot. I really love to cook. Well, I love to eat. So in turn, I've kind of had to learn to like to cook because I like to eat really good food quite often, and I can't afford to eat out all the time. So I cook a decent bit. Recently I've been cooking pizzas. I've even made my own crust from scratch, and they've turned out pretty good. So I've been working on perfecting my recipe there. 1% of the people watching this tutorial will be like, oh, cool, that's good to know. And everyone else will not care at all, but hey, what else are we going to talk about? I'm just pen tooling over here. Okay, so earlier we mentioned that this area of the hair, we're just going to take care of that with the brush tool. So I'm not going to bother trying to get it all perfect with the pen tool because it's just not worth my time, and the pen tool is not the best tool at all for that sort of thing. So we're not even going to worry about it. We're just going to come right down here. Oh, by the way, if you wind up clicking in a place you didn't mean to, and you start clicking and it's like it's not connected with the other pen path, it's a great tip. Just go back to the line there. Yep. Go back to your line, and you're going to see a little square with two sides there, and click on your point now, and then it'll allow you to go ahead and reconnect with your path and allow you to continue making the same path there. So, because that happens from time to time. All right, so you can see we're on a new path, and this is called work path now. So what we're going to do in just a little bit, we're going to rename this work path to arms or something similar to that. All right, there we go. Aaron, tell us more about how you enjoy baking. Okay, if you insist. Now oh man. At least one of us is having fun with this. I'm enjoying myself. I hope you're enjoying yourself on that end too. If you're already very good at using the pen tool and don't feel like you need to learn a whole lot more, then you guys can skip ahead to later in the video and catch me back up then. I'll have more baking trivia for you later in the tutorial. All right, there we go. Come right around this finger. Fingers are really hard to do, by the way, with the pen tool. Look at that, like that looks really wonky. So I'm going to bring this right over here and hit that minus tool, and then hold Alt or Option and kind of move these around. Anything like a finger or any area that's got a lot of little details like this, it's going to be relatively difficult. So the great thing about the pen tool is that it does allow you to go back and change any of these points at any time. So you can go ahead and make your entire pen path and then just come back and work on the hand or whatever area you need to. All right. Now you can see there's a little bit of noise here in my image. And the reason there is because we really wanted to shoot this image mostly with natural light to give it like a very kind of natural ethereal feel to it. I find that I love strobes. I really like shooting with strobes. They're a lot of fun. But images tend to be a little bit more sterile. They tend to be like a little bit more, like they lack a little bit of a natural quality to them. So for a lot of times, for a lot of portraits and things like that, that's totally good. But I found when going for this type of effect, I really wanted to shoot with mostly natural light. So that being said, it was relatively dark in this environment. Shooting with natural light, I was forced to raise my ISO a little bit higher than I would normally shoot with. So when I'm using strobes, you can use the light of the strobes basically to add light to your exposure, so you don't have to really bring up your ISO because the strobes provide plenty of light. But if you're shooting a natural light, I can't exactly tell the sun to put out more light. Well, I could, but I'd look like a crazy person. I don't think the sun would listen. So yeah, that's why our best option here was to increase the ISO. So that's going to basically increase the amount of light that hits the sensor, or it increases the sensitivity of the sensor rather, and that in turn allows us to get a decent exposure even if it's dark in a room. Okay, that's a really nice pen path around our subject. So yeah, in case you guys are working on your pen paths alone and you're trying to figure out how accurate and how detailed, you can see on most of these areas around here, I'm creating not too many points, but detailed area runs or fingers and things like that, we're creating more points. So more points for more detail, less points for less detail. All right, let's just double click on here and we're just gonna call this arms to match the legs. Okay, now same thing as last time. We're gonna right click, I'm gonna choose make selection, feather this by 1 pixel, hit OK there, go back to our layers, okay, and then we're gonna click right here on our layer mask. There we go. And that cuts our subject out of her background as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at just her on her own and see what a good job we did. See, that looks pretty nice, doesn't it? It looks like, it looks very natural. It needs a little bit more of a soft edge around the subject, but as far as just having a subject cut out from the background, in my opinion, I think it looks great. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and move her over to the right. So let's just make sure we're on the correct layer here. We're going to use our move tool and I'm going to click and drag her right over here and try to place her in right about the correct place. Now sometimes it helps to just temporarily turn your layer mask off, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to hold shift and click on my layer mask for the bottom layer, and then we can lower the opacity of our top layer just to kind of see, like, okay, where do we want this to actually go? And I think right about there works pretty well. So we can see the waistband from this, there we go, the waistband from this photo underneath kind of connects to that one. The body connects with that body. The dress goes over the arm a little bit, no biggie, and everything else looks fairly smooth. So we're good to go there. Let's shift click on that layer mask in the background. We're gonna bring our opacity all the way back up here. And now we're going to click this layer off and on. Okay. There we go. And now we need to work on connecting the two. So I need to see what I have visible, what I have available for me here. So I'm going to hold down shift and click on this layer mask. Okay. Because I want to find out, do I have something that I can incorporate into the dress on the lower level? If not, do I have something on the lower image that's going to allow me to incorporate? Let's bring that up just a little bit. Okay, so now it's kind of like a finesse between layer masks, choosing which layer to be visible over top of which other layer. Before I do, I just want to zoom out and see, like, placement. Do I like that? Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and zoom back in. Let's get these two connected. So let's click on this layer mask here. This is for the top body. Let's go ahead and on your layer mask, we're just gonna paint white right on the layer mask with a soft edge brush. All right, right over top of there. All right. All right, and let's use a nice soft brush and kind of just feather that right in. Now this is super easy to do because it's the same, right? It's like the same dress going into the just another picture of the same dress. So it's really, as far as compositing goes, that's pretty easy because it's like it wants to blend in because it is the same dress taken in the same place and everything. Okay, let's make this invisible. Now on our layer mask, we're gonna paint black. over this area and kind of allow that to blend back in together a little bit better. All right. Okay, we're gonna paint black on this because it's got a little bit of a dark border there. All right, so maybe now it's making sense as to why, you know, earlier we didn't spend a whole lot of time right here because I'm just kind of painting it in anyway. Now, if you want to try something, like let's say that we want to try, you know, what would this look like if I, you know, if I brought this fabric up like that? Oftentimes I like to duplicate those layers. So I just have another copy, and then I'm going to try, you know, on this one, we're going to try bringing the fabric up here and see like, okay, is this version look good, or, you know, or did I like the fabric kind of going in the other way? All right, so we can see like, yeah, do I like that, or do I like that? You know, like letting some, yeah, you know what? I like this bottom layer has some fabric right here. That's gonna really help to connect that nicely, isn't it? So that's better in my opinion. So I'm just using my brush tool on the layer mask for the bottom layer and just kind of painting it right in there. And that's making that transition really nice, and there we go. You can barely tell, right? It's like, okay, cool. That looks like she was one person, not two different exposures. Well, she's one person, but you go with the same. So we had that duplicate. It's really nice. I can just delete this duplicate now, and I don't have to redo that layer mask. So anytime you're curious about one area of a layer mask, you can just, you know, create a duplicate and see what you like better. All right, so let's delete that layer. And now going back in here, we're going to shift click on this layer mask because I want some of this hair to be visible, right? I want to paint in white on my layer mask where she has hair. So I'm just, you know, doing my best to pay attention here. All right, wherever her hair is. So you can shift click on the layer mask to kind of see the, you know, with and without hair. I realize there's a thing sticking out right there. We'll take care of that in just a second. So we're painting white on this layer mask because I want the hair to reveal itself once more. Reveal yourself to me. To make sure that I got pretty much all the hair here. Oh yeah, hair on the bottom. Let's click on this layer. There we go. All right, now we're going to zoom in. We're going to paint black on this layer mask here. All right, there we go. All right, get the majority of this gone. You know what, I can just, we're gonna grab the brush tool in the next section, and we're just gonna paint some of this in with the brush tool because it's easier than trying to mask out every individual hair. Painting hair is super easy to do. It's like just grab a small brush and make some brush strokes that look like hair. So we're gonna do that in the next section. All right, for now, just trying to do the best job I can without taking forever, because this, there we go. Let's paint that invisible there. All right, looking great, looking great. Yeah, if you guys have been watching Phlearn for, you know, any amount of time, really, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of using the brush tool and learning how to paint over top of images, because it really opens up your possibilities to do just about anything. So we'll be doing that in the next section. But I think for now, you know, that looks pretty good. All right, so little areas like this, not perfect now, but once we do the brush tool in the next section, they will look much, much better. I promise. I'm gonna get rid of that hair up there. That looks a little weird. All right, yeah, very, very nice. So there's still a decent bit more, there's a decent bit more refinement work. We've got, let's just go ahead and outline it so we don't forget. I like to do this sometimes whenever I see something, but I'm not gonna work on it just yet. I like to outline it myself. I just grab a brush tool and then like the color red, and I just, you know, like lighten. I need to fix that area of the foot. We need to take care of the flare right there, right? Because you can see how blue it is. Doesn't really look, doesn't look perfect. There we go. Hair. And then, yeah, as far as our subject goes, I think that's going to get it. And then, let's see, blur, because we want to blur the edge of her just a little bit there. So that is a wonderful place for us to stop for this section. All right, we'll see you in the next section. I'm excited. This image is really, really coming together. All right, see you in the next section.